All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. We have Chris Carson on the big camera over here. Wait a minute, it's on this side. Big camera over here. Hi, Chris. How you doing this evening?
Hello, how are you?
Great, fantastic. So he's going to be working in Fusion 2.5. And other than that, I am just going to go ahead and hush and let him take it away.
So today is the last day of our Made with Fusion game Kickstarter campaign from the Georgia-developed game Noble Armada Lost Worlds from Holistic Designs. And after speaking with Holistic Designs as the programmer of their game, we thought it might be cool to talk about how we're generating the missions in the game. But before we do that, I'm going to share my wonderful looking screen here, if I can get Skype to cooperate. So there you go. We're sharing screen and sounds, and hopefully everybody can see my screen rather than my mug. Waiting for that to come through. You guys see it?
Oh, yeah, we're good.
All right, let me get rid of the silly little icon. So as you can see, we're currently at $5,544. So we've hit our goal to get the game done, to make the mission editor and campaign editor complete. This also now includes the Mac version of the game, which we're excited about. But one thing that we're really hoping to get in the last 24 hours is the Inquisition, which, really the Inquisition pulled us aside and said, we're going to be in the game so we can deliver the holy word to all the different non-aligned lost worlds. So, we don't really have a choice. We really need your help supporting this, or Andrew and I might be in trouble with them. One of the features the Inquisition has is the Flamer, which I was working on. As you can see, I did a GIF here. The Flamer is very destructive against armor, but if your ship still has shields, then it'll be safe. So the idea with this faction is you want to pelt the enemy vessel with your other hard points to break down the shields, and then just bathe them in this cleansing fire that will either convert them or remove them from your path. And I was working on the audio, so I thought before we work on the editor, I would do that. So what I'm doing here is I'm pressing the space bar. I'm going to play the flamethrower sample that I just received from Andrew, and 0 times means it loops. So you could do 1 through whatever positive integer, but if you set it to 0, it'll just continue to loop. Now, you'll see that I have 2 events here. Later, I'm probably going to put this on a fast loop. I put this whole particle emitter pretty quickly together today. And the reason why I have 3 there is if you just run the 1, you get particles. And you also notice that it didn't sound very good, did it? And that's because it's continually playing the same sample over and over and over, and they're overlapping each other. So what we need to do is we need to create a new event. We'll ask if a specific sample is not playing, and then we'll select our sample. And then I'll place this event up here so that it triggers only when we're playing. And then I move the play sample up there. So now, now you notice I let go of the button, it still is playing the sample. That's because it's set to loop. So the next event we need is, well, I'm just going to put never, and then I'm going to put this bad boy up here, and I'm going to negate it. So now this event will trigger when the spacebar is not pressed. And what we'll do there is we'll say stop a specific sample, stop the flamethrower. Also, it seemed a bit loud to me. Would you guys agree it was a bit loud?
Yes, I'll pipe in. Sure.
Good. Thanks for agreeing.
Yes. Sorry.
Yes. Okay. So now we'll try it. There we go. We get a proper dispensed flame. Now, it's not heavy enough. So then what we do is we go here and we turn these events back on. Now I get that pretty flame we're looking for. So help the Inquisition spread the word to non-believers by funding the campaign up to 7,000, which is our final stretch goal we're trying to hit in these last 16 hours. Any support you can give is appreciated. So one of the things we've done with the game is we built our own tool, a level editor, which is right here, which will save files, which I'm going to show you. what one of the files looks like. Currently, they're stored in INIs, but users could store them however they want. Arrays, lists, tuples, whatever, what kind of data, storage data that you like. Here's one, and you can see all the data is in this INI file. And how we construct that INI file is with the editor. The editor is pretty simple so far. We're in the middle of converting it from a behind-the-scenes programmer tool into a end-user tool, so that's as part of the campaign we can give this tool to you guys so that you can build your own missions and eventually your own campaigns. So we have a little load dialog here, which we'll make pretty soon. But these are all the ones I have in here. Some of them are just tests. Some are actual campaigns. Let's start a new one. So here's our editor, and you've got these main buttons up here. Obviously, save campaign will change to save mission. Same for load, and those allow us to save and load the different INI files. Add waypoint, cyclographics. Cyclographics changes the background setting. I kind of like the red one myself, which isn't shown here, so that has to be added, but we'll go with that. And then we have the ships will go here, and your selectable house types. This is all very much in flux as we try to figure out what makes it most user-friendly. Currently, I could select a couple ships, and then I pick a house. And now what it does is once a house is picked, it shows me that ship, what it looks like for that house. Now, if I was to select two houses, it will then switch between the two houses. And the reason why you have two houses or multiple houses is because campaigns can be played by only one house or multiple houses. You can select the different campaigns based on their houses. So if a campaign is only Hazat, then when I select House Hazat in the game, which I'll show you soon, only the missions that include House Hazat will be available. So it's kind of a little trick there, but you could even put all of them in there if you wanted to. So we're going to keep it like that. Then down here we have our experience level. Each ship has experiences for both crew and Marines, and you can change that to whatever you want. There's 4 levels. Maybe you're making a campaign with just one ship, and going to give them pretty hard odds to go against. So maybe you give them a frigate and you make them all veterans, which would give you a slight advantage. So that's the fleet right here that the player will have when they start the game coming through the gate. Now we need places to go, right? So what we can do is down here on the planets, and again, this is all probably going to be changed as we can change it from a behind-the-scenes tool to an end-user type program. But right now, you click letter A and you get the A planet. If I click letter C, I get the C planet. If I click letter B, I get the B planet. And so now I've created, these planets that are orbiting this decaying star. Now, in Noble Armada, you travel the map through waypoints. So what I can do, or nav lines. So you right-click, and then you drag a waypoint to the planet you want to go from. What in the world is that? Why is spam on Steam so bad? Here,
I was going to ask you about that.
Hey, I am streaming, so thanks for the comment live. Going offline now, and
so if you know who Chicken Leg is, go get him.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. All right, and then we'll go here to Steam, view friends, and we will silence the non-believers. There we go. Thank you, friend. I see the problem with being a representative of Clickteam is I got to keep all these channels of communications open, but the internet is full of many interesting people, him probably being, or her probably being one of them. So we've created a nav line, or a navigational direction. I could connect it to another one, and then I could interconnect these two. One problem we're having right now with the engine is you can see it's creating multiple points, which we'll fix, but we'll ignore that for now. Now that I've added this, pathway, if you will, you can choose to have battles in between the different transitions. So you add a waypoint, and that allows you to drop a battle, an encounter, if you will, onto the map. And we could leave this one open if we wanted to. And then as the clue up here tells you, we double click to enter the waypoint editor. So we just, in a stream a couple days ago, we just rigged no battle to be actual, because this is just like null. It was originally just null. And then talking to Andrew, we had the thought, well, what if we made it that you could just use this for a story point, like a passing fleet decides you're not worth the fight and signals to you a welcome safe passage. Right? So that could be a little story point when you encounter this fleet. And then with no battle, you would move from that waypoint to a target grid on the map. And as long as you get to that point, then you'd move on in the game. Now, what we did do, though, is maybe you see those ships in the battle, and you're like, wow, those could be worth some money, or maybe there's some things in there I could salvage. So you could choose to engage that fleet in no battle and turn the no battle into a battle. And then here you decide, what house you want, just like the house dialogue that we showed. And then you pick what the fleet is that you're going to deal with in that battle, or no battle in this case. So now we save that waypoint. And then we'll create a defeat all enemies waypoint here. And we'll stack it up pretty good. And you can change the avatar. The avatar is the character portrait. And, you can put more story in here. You could say, Chris has no imagination, so he can't, on the fly, come up with story elements for the mission. So the Ducados decide he has to go. And that would be the waypoint between this planet and this planet, the battle you would engage.
That was very well written.
Oh, thank you. It's a gift. Of course, so when you get to planets, though, you also have the ability to do some shopping. Who doesn't like shopping? So you'll see we have an edit button under the planets that have been highlighted. And if I click one, then I can determine what kind of installations are available as we play. So a mining operation provides you crew. Military installation, I believe, provides you Marines. Listening post tells you what's left in the system for enemy hardware to deal with. The colony, I think the colony does repairs on your fleet, as well as the dockyard, or the dockyard sells you ships. I don't quite remember. Weapons cache allows you to buy new weapons, as well as the smuggling den. So the dockyard sells you ships, repair facility repairs them. And then you decide what you want, and then you can write more story. Chris made it safely past the fleet. So it seems, even though he is quite boring, he is a devil in space combat. And that would be the story element that you would visit upon reaching the planet. And then we're going to work on adding to the level editor some mission objectives. Now that we've converted these from campaigns to missions, each system being a mission, we hope to give the mission type. So one may simply be you want to seize the system from the name of your house, which means you're going to have to get rid of all the fleets that are opposing you. Other missions that we're considering is a retrieval mission. So maybe I need to get to this planet to retrieve something and then get back to the gate. And that could also be a mission. And we're interested in what other mission types people can play with within the rules of the game that we have now. And then what the plan is with the campaign editor, which has also been funded due to a stretch goal being reached, we're going to allow you to string those missions together in a campaign. So the different mission types, you can build this narrative in a campaign and have epic storytelling. And that's interesting. That wasn't my house, so no one's being murdered at my house. Just want to make that clear.
I'm not sure what that is either, but
it was fun. It was fun. Someone was really excited about the game, and honestly, I can't blame them.
All I know is I heard epic storytelling in action.
That's, yes, followed by a scream. So obviously it's the real deal. So then we save our campaign, the boring Chris story, you know, which obviously I need to make that longer so I can fit it in. But we'll just go boring story. And who caresville, and it's a campaign, so play it. And you put whatever you want in there. You know, you build a cool narrative story, which is what we're trying to do in this game, and using the Lost Worlds of the Fading Suns universe as a way for our users to engage in building some interesting, cool stories set in the universe. So that's the editor. Now, how did I put the editor together, right? So when I save that, I make that INI file that I showed you. And, you know, honestly, it's not that complex. When you're building a tool for whatever game you're making, each tool is going to be different. Of course, this editor is designed specifically to work with this game. It is, believe it or not, only 363 some lines plus comments. So somewhere under that. And you'll see that I've dedicated a large number of groups to loading and another large group to saving. And then we have our interface here in the main engine. So loading, basically, we target the INI file, which we do by passing a global string from the main frame, from the first frame, which we declare here. So that's load. And we achieve that load by the selector. And when we double click, we pull in that word, that name. So ABC -1_1.ini is slapped into the load global string. And then when we get to the load, right here, app drive, app directory, which you can see how long I've been working on this, because now we have the command app path, which does it all for you, locates the root directory of your application. And then we put in campaigns, because that's where we're storing all the levels that you're editing. So in this folder, and then plus load. And load is that string that we saved here. And then that loads the INI file. And then what we're going to do is the first group we set to main, set the title, and then we start setting items and the global values or strings I've assigned to them. And we blow through that real quick, which isn't all of it, but that's just the static information, like the campaign description, the name of the system, the title of the campaign. And then here we have total number of waypoints, lanes, and holders, which we put here. And we use that to iterate through in the next loading sequence. So we close that down. And then we can see here we have, actually we'll look at the fancy list view. So set counter to house 1. This is telling you which houses are available in the campaign, and I think it might be helpful if we just pull up a campaign to compare. You can see that on this particular campaign, house 5 equals 1, which means that the 5th house, Hazat, is the only one that is set on when we load the editor. A little string parser fun going on here. So we set source string to pass string. Pass string is set to the gate. The gate is a fixed value in our game. Every level has a gate string, which is right here. And then we use this little guy here as a delimiter to divide up the data. And then with that, we place all that information into the local values inside the gate object, which if I were to click on the gate, if I can find it, where are you, gate? Got a lot of frames here closed, so maybe if we go here, we can find it. Gate, there it is. You'll see that those are all the values I've declared locally in this value. So I think it's hidden behind there, yeah. And then we repeat that. Now the reason why we stored earlier here, total number of lines, is because here we're going to iterate through them. I'm going to set current item to lane, converting the total lines string number to string will return based on how many we've stored into one of these. So for instance, this one has at least 6 lanes. So if we go up to lanes, it says 4. So obviously 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. So at some point we must have deleted lanes in this campaign, and that's another thing I got to work on cleaning up in the INI file. So like these two here are no longer necessary because it only pulls 4 lanes. So that would be 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then we set the data, load the data in just like we did before, and then subtract from total number of lines. We continue doing that until we're out of total lines, and then we load the next waypoint, which is waypoint holders. So that's pretty much how it works as far as loading data, and then we'll show you how we make it. And I think what we'll do is, instead of me showing you, because I was afraid it would be kind of boring. Who thinks it's boring just watching me look at the code? It'd be a little more fun actually showing you some work, build something.
Sure. Wow. Okay, getting a delay. I'm not.
Okay, so X2Line's asking, can we talk more about engine architecture basics, i.e., if it is a virtual machine or if it generates code, etc. How is it different from other engines? What platforms is supported? And how do you compile to other platforms other than PC? Thanks. Excellent question, X2Line. I appreciate you asking. Fusion is a Windows and Mac-based editor that builds its own event-based coding, which is what you're looking at here. We call this eventing. It's our own form of programming. And then our engine, the backend, will convert it into various platforms. So you do that by selecting one of these options here: Windows executable, Android, and HTML5, as well as
Check.
Mac, all build the compiled executable that you would distribute. In the case of iOS, HTML5 and the UWP platform for Windows, it actually builds you code that you would then have to move to the assigned compiler. So in the case of UWP, you would want to take that UWP code that it generates, upload it into Visual Studio, and compile to whatever test environment you're trying to do. Same thing with iOS. You'd have to load Xcode on a Mac and compile the game in Xcode and test it on a device, and then do the whole Xcode process of compile, test, and then eventually upload it to iTunes so that you can wait 3 weeks for them to tell you that it's approved. So yeah, that's how that works. Currently we have Mac, Windows, Flash, Android, iOS, HTML5, UWP, and we just recently brought Fusion 3 far enough along that we're offering conversion services to the 3 major consoles with a 2.5 application. So a 2.5 application can be given to Clickteam. We quote you the price. We then, once you agree upon it, we streamline the application as best we can, and then we run it through a converter that converts it to a Fusion 3 project, and then that project is then translated in the Fusion 3 compiler to whatever console we want. So we'll have more compilable options for you when Fusion 3 releases, but you can still work in 2.5 now and still target consoles if you want. Hopefully that answers your question. Is there any other questions that I might not be seeing because I'm only looking at Nexer? Anybody? Questions?
Scanning the other channels. And I'm echoing like crazy now. No other questions at this time.
Okay. All right, so let's build let's play around and build some level editing stuff. So what we'll do is we'll just take we've created a blank application, and we'll grab some assets from our previous application. So I'm going to grab this quick backdrop. We'll just slap it here. And then we'll go into the editor, and we'll grab a couple things. Let's grab a planet. Actually, let's grab a big planet so everybody can see it. Super. Let's grab another planet. And then let's grab our active 4, which should be labeled. So let's go ahead and label it here, NavLine. And then I'll label it in the new app, NavLine. Remember, kids, name your stuff. And then it should already be set to unchecked created start. So this object doesn't exist when I run the game. And these either are not existing until we run the game. So let's grab button 1 and button 2, which of those should start. So if I was to run my test app, I just got buttons. And let's start. So I don't know if we have movements set. We don't. Good. I believe these have a global value or global qualifier. Qualifiers are really cool to allow you to group separate objects of different types together in a single group. We've created all these really cool little graphics for you so that you can see. I went with, I believe it's particles? No. What is it? It's balls, because all planets are basically balls. And then what we'll do is we'll create an event. If the mouse clicks on an object, actually these are button objects, so I can just say is clicked. So many ways to skin a cat. Then we'll create planet B, and we'll stick it right here for now. Let's test that. Nothing happening. What did I do wrong? Well, let's first check which button we're working with. Button 1. Go into the button's properties. It is a button, so that's good. So there must be something wrong here. Visible at start, that's the issue. So I click that, and boom, now I got a planet. Now we need to move that planet around, right? So each object in Fusion has what we call a fixed value. And what we're going to do is we're going to, in our application here, we're going to declare a global value, and we'll call it selected fixed value. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to click on the object and store the fixed value. And we do that by simply saying if the mouse clicks on an object, and we'll select the group, so this event will work for both of these planets, or any planets we add in the future. We then set global value 6, select fixed value to whatever fixed value it is. Why would you do that, Chris? That's a great question. Because our next event is going to be...
Please tell us.
Yeah, you're supposed to be, Brian and Assorted Crew, just like in an infomercial, and say, well, why is that, Chris?
Yes, why is it, Chris?
I'm glad you asked. Let me show you. So repeat when left mouse key is pressed, and then we run a comparison. We say, compare two general values, retrieve fixed value. If that equals whatever we just stored, okay, so we're identifying which object's fixed value equals the selected fixed value. And we're checking that every time we hold down the left mouse key. And what we're going to do then is we're going to say position set X to X mouse in the expression editor. And then we'll say position set Y, of course, to Y mouse. And then we run it. So first I make my planet, and then I should be able to drag it around. Now, why did I go through all that hubbub? Because when I create the next planet, by switching these bad boys around, let's say I place it around the same place. So now we've got two planets layered on top of each other, and the other one's not visible either, so debug, visible. So now they're overlapping, right? And you see they're clicking together, which isn't good. So I'm missing a step here. I've got to remember what the step was. Insert, retrieve fixed value. And so what I'm doing is I'm saying, does it equal 0? The reason I'm doing that is because when I clicked on it, it selected both. And then it stored both fixed values. So I also think I want to try it like this. Instead of using a general comparison between two, I'm going to compare this exact iteration of the object, if that makes sense, which it probably doesn't because I'm a horrible speaker. Let's see if that works. Okay. Now, why is it doing that? And the reason it's doing that is because I haven't reset the global value. So there's our selected fixed value, right? I can't change this one because I have no event that resets the select fixed value back to 0. So that's easy said and done. I'm going to go ahead and negate this repeat when left mouse key is pressed. If it's negated, then I'm going to go here to set value, and we'll select value back to 0. So we got A, we got B, and there we go. It only selects one or the other. Excellent. Now, let's draw a line between the two. How do we do that?
How do we do that, Chris?
First thing we'll do is we're going to right-click. You can use whatever interface you want, but just because it's funsies, actually we need to use this one. Double-click it. This is what I love about Fusion. I'm able to just pull stuff down and just change stuff around, and it works so fast. So now we're going to use our click on a planet with the right mouse key. If we do, we're going to create one of these nav lines on top of that object. So if we did it right, create a planet, right click, and there's that green dot. Probably you may not be able to see it on your monitor because we're streaming, but there's a little green dot there. And then what we got to do is we then need to, I guess we could use another global value, and we'll call it dragging nav line. And then we'll say compare to, we'll set the global value of dragging nav line to 1. So even though this is an integer-based value, we're going to just purpose it to be a flag or a Boolean 0 and 1. So if it's equal to 1, then we say compare to global value, select fixed value, dragging nav line, does it equal to 1? Oh, 1, I say. And then up here, we're going to put it to 0 because we only want to create one nav line at a time. Okay, so dragging nav line equals 1, and if nav line flag, which is also Boolean, is off, this will identify the one we're working with. Then, and we also need one more command. Repeat while mouse key is pressed, the right button. We'll bring that to the top. And then what we do is we grab another object so we can do the math easily, because why do it hard? Advanced direction object will give us some distance. Nice, cheap. And then we will say, we'll start with scale. We'll set the scale. And we're going to go with X scale only. And we're going to say, set the scale to distance between 2 points. We're going to go with decimals. And the first value will be, the position of the new nav line. So we grab the X, Y coordinates for that. And then we'll tab it, and then we're going to go for X mouse and Y mouse. They seem to work together a lot, don't they? And we'll just make it low quality. So create a planet, click on it, and I let go of it, so that's why it stopped. So let's run it again, planet, and there you go. So now I'm extending based on my distance from the planet. Now the next thing we need to do is angle, which is also relatively easy. Set angle, and then again we go ahead and get angle between 2 points, which is direction, and we go position X, position Y, and then X mouse, Y mouse, because why? Because we love you.
Nice Disney reference.
And then right click, and I'm drawing a line. Now notice that it's almost double, isn't it, from where my mouse is? That doesn't seem appropriate. Why is that, Chris?
Why is that, Chris?
That's a great question. Let's find out. So let's look at our sprite. This is what we're stretching. And look, it's 2 pixels wide. So when I set it to a scale of 2, that means it's 4 pixels wide. And when I set it to a scale of 10, it's 20 pixels wide, which is double the distance. So an easy fix on that would be to go here and just say divide by 2. And we'll try it again. Planets and line. There you go. It's almost spot on. So there's our nav line. And then we create another planet. And we can configure our planets whatever way we want. And so there's the basics. Now, what are we looking at here? What we have is a nav line and 2 planets and their positions. So that's data that we might want to save, right? So let's do that final bit. Let's create. We'll dump it in a list object just so we can visually see it. So what we'll do is we'll grab a list object and we'll just drop it here so that we can see what we're saving. And then we're going to grab another button off of our object here, and it seems to be semi-transparent, so let's go ahead and make it solid again. And then visible at start, create at start, wonderful. Can we click it? Oh, it's an active object. It's not an active system button, so we'll have to manually create the click on it, which is fine. That's absolutely fine. So what we'll do is we need to see some things here. First, the nav line also has a group. Doesn't have a group. It's only one object. But the planets have their 2 different bits. So let's sort of comment, save, routine, and then we'll say if the mouse clicks on an object, and that is the save button. Then we're going to do a couple things. We're going to say fast loop, start loop, save, planet, data. I'm going to copy that because I'm going to need that loop identifier. A loop is basically a subroutine. How many times do we want to run it? Well, we want to run it based on the number of planets we have. And then we say on loop. And we'll drop that there. Now, I believe, okay, good, alterable value 2 and alterable value 3. So we have an identifier that separates these 2 in alterable value A, which is perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to say on each, pick 1. Doesn't matter which one, just pick 1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say add a line, planet plus the data, which is right here. We saw that it was alterable value A, and it needs to be a string. So we convert it to a string, and then we will add just a little separator for now. And it says I'm mixing, and that's because I put it within the closed brackets. Voila. And then the planet, currently the only data that's important to us is its XY position. So string, and we go position X plus, and then we'll separate our data again, plus string plus position Y. Okay, so that reads the data for that particular planet. Now what we need to do is destroy that planet when we're done. And again, using order of operations, it's going to do this line first, then destroy it. If I do it this way, I've got nothing to read because I've removed it from the game. So in layman's terms, you can't read something if you don't have it. So we run
Destroying something is similar.
and then we drop our 2 planets in here and save it, and nothing happens. Why isn't anything happening?
Why isn't anything happening, Chris?
We're going to find out. Well, the first thing we need to do is see if the event is triggering. So I'm going to use my list object to do just that. Hello, I worked. Let's run it again. Okay, so we know that the this line 9, is triggering. and for some reason it's not executing my fast loop correctly. On each one of, okay, that's the problem. I used a different type of fast loop. I used a embedded loop, which is called an on each loop, which will iterate through each object. I could use that easily, but I was supposed to use on loop here. And I don't think I have that string saved anymore. So save planet data, and maybe that fixed it. Planet 1, Planet 2, and there's our data. So it pulled the alterable value for each, concatenated it to the word planet, and then put the XY coordinate and then pulled it off the map. And then we have the hello I worked left over because that was our test. And then we would do the same thing. Yeah, and then we would do the same thing for nav lines. Nav lines. And we would go like this. Change it to nav lines. Oops. Count number of objects. But we're going to change that to save nav lines. And then go here, and we would do the same picking, identify nav line, and then we would be just adding different data. Let's go here. We know we still need the XY position, right? Nav line, change this to nav line. And I don't know if the nav line stores in alterable value A anything. It doesn't, but we can. Number created. And then when we create one, which we do here, we would then say alterable value add to number created total count. So the first one I create, there's just one. Second one I create, there's two. Second one, third one I create, it's three, and it will give a unique number each time. And then, so now that alterable value A still works. See that it changes to number created. But there's there's two pieces of extra data we need. We need angle. And we need X scale. Because when we recreate those nav lines, we need those two pieces of data.
Hey,
so,
no one
yes.
Jeff says on Twitch,
Yeah.
that line creation is a neat trick with the advanced direction object.
Yeah, it is. I actually use it all the time. You know, I guess when you find something that works, then you kind of add it to your tool chest. But I've used it for lasers. I've used it for navigational lines. I've used it for all sorts of stuff. People, when they use Fusion, we sometimes have users, especially when they come to Fusion from exclusively programming backgrounds, they seem to try to look for the most complex way to do things. And I suggest to users that use Fusion, just think of it in the most simplest if-then proposition, and then look for objects that do it for you easily. The reason you'd want to use Fusion is so that you could rapidly develop your game rather than spend hours and hours and hours and obsessing over, did I write a super uber complex algorithm that does what I want it to do? Fusion is about getting the work done rapidly and quickly. So if you have an object like advanced direction that allows you to compare angle and direction, use it. I mean, it's there. I could have wrote a cause sine expression that would do the same thing, but it just would have took longer, and there's no reason to do that. So thank you for the comment, Jeff. So let's run it and see if it saves that data. Planet A, Planet B, and then right-click Planet B. Oops. And then drag our nav line, and then let go. Now I'm probably gonna get two nav lines because I actually created two. No, I only created one, and it didn't destroy that nav line either, which is another thing we would have to do when saving.
When planets collide.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason it only created one is because flag was off, and we turned flag on, and we never set dragging nav line the global value back to 0 like we do up here. So here is the most basic version of what we're working on, and there's our data. And then what we do is reverse engineer your algorithm to load that data in. In this case, I'd use a string parser, and I'd say, well, this is planet 2. And planet 2 is this particular object in the game. Render it at these coordinates, and the same for planet 3. Navline 1, I'd create it. I would set it to these positions, and then you can't see it because I haven't stretched it out. We can do that though. Whoop. It's very important when you're using Fusion that you make sounds with your mouth. I don't know why, but when I'm teaching programming to kids, I tell them make the sound, and they're like, no, and I'm like, yeah.
No, so Bob Ross told us to do it all the time.
Yeah, paint a happy little planet. All right, so that's level editing. 101 intro.
Well, you say intro. This has been a lot of advanced Fusion. Like
it's not that. It's not that. Come on, we're talking 11 lines. It's not
that much. 11 lines.
11 lines. You guys can do this. If
so
I can do it, you can do it.
During the creation of this level editor, what do you think would be your biggest epiphany while creating? Like when you were programming this in Fusion, what was like your biggest aha moment?
Well, Noble Armada has been a ever evolving title, and so I don't know if there's been a single aha moment, but there's been definitely, okay, we got it working, and then later we're like, oh, that's not going to work. We got to change how we do it. And since we decided to transition from a behind-the-scenes holistic designs only tool to a user tool, there's been a lot of those moments too, where we're like, well, everybody knew how that worked internally because I told everybody, but now it needs to be a lot more intuitive and common sense. So there's been a lot of design changes, and there's going to be a lot more to come before we have the final editor, because we want to make sure that when you're designing for the end user, my belief is you want to get it as close to as you look at it and, oh yeah, that's how it works. That's what I like about some of the old classic arcade games is somehow they were just inherently, okay, I got 2 buttons, I got a joystick, I can figure out how this works in the first 30 seconds of playing it. I think we should all design software and games that work like that. I think it needs to be as easily intuitive, just, natural, if you will, when you design it. So I don't know if that answered the question, but that's the answer I have.
I like it. So I noticed here, at the top it says Clickteam Fusion Developer 2.5. Have you been messing with 3 at all?
No, 3 is still under lock and key in the Clickteam Fusion labs atop Mount Olympus, being developed by the gods of Click. So no, I haven't ascended yet to the mountain to test it. I have worked with, as I'm leading the conversion process, I have looked at and worked with the converter as well as the renderer that will take the JavaScript-based code that Fusion 3 save files which used to be MFAs, are now based in JavaScript, convert to the various different languages. I have looked at that, but that's it's not in an end-user form in any way, shape, or form. So you can visit our blog for information on Fusion 3 for those of you that want information. We are doing our best to store it here. In fact, as you can see, our last post was that we are looking for help. If you're a programmer who wants to jump into the exciting world of event-based programming and join the original development tool, non-programming development tool, then we're looking for you. Give us an email, but if you click here and go to here, then you can see all our Fusion 3 blogs, the last being talking about the conversion process, before that sprite sheets, and then the image editor, and so forth and so on. It just goes on and on and on for several entries. But yeah, what's that?
This is Andrew. I want to give a shout out to all the folks who have contributed to the Kickstarter during this stream. So thank you, Yuppa-san, especially generous ones.
Well, let's take a look. Now that you've mentioned that, let's see how many people did not fall asleep during my presentation. And wow, yeah, we've definitely. Let me refresh to make sure that's accurate. That's excellent. We're a little closer to the. We just recently changed it to 7,000 to, again, get the Inquisition. If you are someone who believes that a end of time space faith should be spread amongst the galaxy, or if you just like to set things on fire, then this is definitely the target stretch goal for you, and we would love your help doing it. The reason why it's going to cost what it costs is because we've got to come up with the new ships. This one is just me taking our artist Ilker Eisen's incredible artwork and slap Fui chopping a new ship together, and then shifting the color in Photoshop. He will, of course, want to provide the best looking ships possible. He's done an incredible job with the art. Then I got to program that in because we planned on originally 5 houses. This would be essentially a 6th house or faction. And then we got to program in all the little special features like the front cannons on a Inquisition ship are only the flamer, and only the Inquisition can use the flamer weapon. So we got to account for that special set of rules. Then we got to balance it all out because we want the Inquisition to give you not only a new faction to play with, but give you access to a new style of play. So there'll be a little bit of balancing going on there as well. So yeah, we appreciate it, and we got 15 hours to go, and hopefully we can get there. They say that magic happens in the last 24 hours of your Kickstarter. We could use the Pan Creator's blessing to get us there. Is there any more questions?
So some of us who are already backers of the program, supporting some more would definitely help in building this.
Absolutely. One can always change their pledge if they so desire to show a little more support for the Emperor and his Inquisitors. And if we go here, we have on the side all these different options. They give you different cool stuff. If you are at a 10 or lower level, if you bump up to 25 or 50, you do get early access to the PC mission editor. Even on the higher levels like the 50, you even can submit a mission for possible inclusion in the PC game itself. So the way the missions will be shared is there's going to be pack-in missions, which will be quote-unquote official holistic design developed missions and campaigns. And then depending on the platform, for instance, Steam, we will build workshop functionality, which will allow everyone else to build user-created levels to share. So it'd be really kind of cool for fans of the Fading Suns universe to quote-unquote contribute an official mission to the game, and you can do that at this level. Holistic Designs will make sure that whatever you submit fits within the universe and is appropriate.
And for everybody watching, be sure to tune in. Let's see, where did I put that link? There it is. Be sure to tune in on mixer.com/HDI Andrew. I'm going to put that on all the different browsers here in a second. But Andrew's going to be playing the game. Are you going to be playing with the level editor, Andrew? Are you with us? Earth to Andrew, are you with us?
And the Hazat frigate must have took him out.
Well, I know what it is. He's scrambling, trying to get ready to stream.
Well, we'll play.
Indeed. Not only are we doing the game here tonight, but on Thursday, I think there's something coming up, isn't there?
What?
Don't you have something special Thursday, Brian?
Me, Thursday. Yes. Oh, yeah. We are looking. We are putting together people who. Thank you, Andrew, for putting me on the spot. I appreciate it. We are putting together a group of people.
Interrupting when you try and say.
We are putting together a bunch of people. Oh my God. We're putting together a bunch of people who attended GDC. And so we're going to have a nice little chit-chat about that.
It's the GDC report back by GGDA members who went to the biggest game development convention this side of Steam and have a lot to tell you.
Thank you. All right. So, any last thoughts, comments, questions, complaints? Other than me?
So, Chris, I was curious, with all that you've been putting together for the mission editor, it's kind of funny because some people look at game engines like Fusion as a glorified level editor, essentially. And what you did is you used this engine to create a real level editor. How common do you see that happening with Fusion development?
Well, that's probably been the number one issue we've had since day one, since this company started in 1993. The tool, of course, has evolved that entire time, but people always treat it as it's not a programming tool. And like you said, they think it's some form of a level editor. This is programming. It has all the facets of programming that you would find in a regular programming language. 2.5 has been the most versatile version of it. 3 is going to break the door on it. Yes, there are occasionally a limitation here and there based in comparison to scripted language, but I myself have yet to come up with something that I couldn't do in 2.5 that you could do otherwise if you were writing your own script. So yeah, I'm a diehard Fusion user. I own part of Clickteam. I love it. It's my life and all that good stuff. But yeah, that does. I find that almost offensive when people say, "Well, it's not RPG Maker, people. It's not. It's programming. It's if thens, it's subroutines, it's ors, it's elses, it's
logic.
Yeah, it's logic. It's programming. Now, is it cheating because it's easier?
No.
Well, that's up to you to decide.
No.
I can tell you that when I demonstrated this at trade shows, especially education trade shows, because we do have an education division. I get a lot of people who have 8 years doctorate in computer science, and I show this to them, and I'd say the most memorable one is a really old guy, and he cursed me out after I showed it to him, and I just kind of was like shocked that he cursed me out, and I said, "Well, I'm sorry, sir," and he goes, "No, it's not that. It's you've just showed me that the 8 years I spent of my life were pretty much wasted."
Wow.
I said, "Well, thank you. I don't think your 8 years were wasted, but
no, his 8 years helped him create this."
Right.
They were more than wasted.
Right. Exactly. Programming has evolved from.
Chris Risey on Clickteam for the win. Best solo dev game in my opinion. Love to do games with it.
Thank you. We love hearing that. Programming since day one started as vacuum tubes, then punch cards, then assembly, then scripts, and we're just trying to be the next step in the chain.
And I'm loving the change. All right, so everybody on all of our streaming channels, Twitch, Mixer, YouTube, make sure you hit that follow and like and subscribe buttons. And also be sure, because I put the link up there, I'll do it one more time before we go. Boom, there's Twitch. Hey, there's Mixer and YouTube. There you go. Go check out this Mixer channel with Andrew. He's going to start streaming gameplay of Noble Armada Lost Worlds here in just a moment. And I guess he's going to say goodbye while we say goodbye to Chris.
Thanks for having me again, guys.
Bye, Chris.
Talk to you guys later.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Have a good night.